Nefilim. The present state of the moon and of Mars and other celestial bodies does not imply that in the past they were equally desolate. Concerning Mars and the moon, we have the testimony of our ancestors, supported by modern observation, that these bodies were engaged in near collisions only a few thousand years ago. It is not excluded that under conditions prevailing on their surfaces prior to these events, life could have developed there, or elsewhere in the solar system to an advanced stage. Working in the early 1940s on Worlds in Collision, which in its original form covered also the cataclysmic events preceding the Exodus, I wondered at a certain description that sounded like a visit from space. The 6th chapter of the book of Genesis starts this way: "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." The story told in Genesis 6 about the sons of God, B'nai Elam, coming to the daughters of men is usually explained as referring to an advanced priesthood that mingled with backward tribesmen. When Columbus discovered America, the natives, according to the diary of his first voyage, regarded him and his crew as having arrived from the sky. A similar occurrence could have taken place in pre-diluvial times, when some invaders from a remote part of the world came and were regarded as sons of God. But if we are today on the eve of interplanetary travel, we must not declare as absolutely impossible the thought that this Earth was visited ages ago by some people from another planet. Or was this Earth alone populated by intelligent beings? In my understanding, this passage from the book of Genesis is a literary relic dealing with a visit of intelligent beings from another planet. It appears that the extraterrestrial visitors made their landing as if in advance knowledge of the impending catastrophe of the deluge. It could be that Jupiter and Saturn were approaching each other, even closer on their orbits, and that a disruption of one of them was expected. Possibly many centuries or even millennia passed between the landing and the deluge. The mission could have been undertaken to ascertain the conditions on Earth. If it was an escape, it could also have been from another catastrophe in the solar system, one of those that precede the deluge, like the one described as the dethronement and emasculation of Uranus by Kronos. If the ancient legends of a battle between the gods and titans, so persistent in the Greek world, but also in the mythologies of other civilizations, have any historical value, we may try to find what may have been the substratum of this fantasy. It seems that following great convulsions of nature, observable in the celestial sphere, giant bodies were hurled on the earth. They arrived, burned, and were crushed by impact. But at least one group of escapees succeeded in safely reaching the earth. They descended on Mount Hermon, or Anti-Lebanon. Of the extra-biblical traditions dealing with the subject, some reach hoary antiquity, antecedent to the composition of the Bible texts. The Book of Enoch narrates that the group was composed of males only, 200 in number, under the leadership of one by the name of Shemhazai. Aggadic literature says that the sons of God tried to return to heaven from where they had come, but could not. The new arrivals were probably of gigantic stature. Their progeny with women of the earth were giants. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. Having fathered giants, they themselves must have been not of human size. The planet from which they came, I would not know to determine. L would refer to Saturn. The great size of the visitors would suggest a smaller body, where the gravitational influence would be less. 10,000 years is only an instant in the life of the cosmos. 10,000 years ago, man was only in a rude Stone Age. Today, he contemplates to visit other planets. If such progress is made in a time as short as this, who knows what secrets are concealed in the past or in the future? Because the story seemed so fantastic, I made up my mind at that time not to publish anything on the subject when discussing the deluge and still earlier events. I came to this idea in 1940 and 41. In the 1950s, many people reported sighting UFOs, which were claimed to be vehicles of visitors from other planets, a view which does not find any credence with me. In 1957, the space age began, and by the late 1960s, when the proposal that there were ancient visitors to Earth from other star systems found its way into print, in 1960, a Russian physicist and mathematician, M. Agreste, came to the conclusion that Baalbek Stone was a platform for ascent by ancient space travelers, and that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by atomic weapons. February 9, 1960. At the time, I saw some alluring points to this thesis, but I would strongly question the implication that extraterrestrial visitors came to Earth as late as the Old Kingdom in Egypt, because this is the time to which the patriarch Abraham, a contemporary of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, belonged. Previously, several correspondents engaged me on the subject. One correctly observed that in order to procreate, the visitors must have been the same species as man. The Nephilim would more correctly be rendered as sons of gods, and may possibly be taken in the sense of sons of planets, or those who came from the planets. Several sources, including the Book of Enoch and Clement of Alexandria, maintain that the Nephilim brought with them much astronomical and technical knowledge, which they imparted to mankind. They couldn't have been all bad. Around a sun-like star is going to be really rare because they have no way of getting water. They have to be in an environment where they can get water, and that's why I'm with Velikovsky and Thunderbolts when they say that the Earth was a satellite of a brown dwarf star, simply for that matter, for the oxygen and the water that we have. And now, sure enough, they found a system. Well, here, let me play this for you. This will tell you better.
Imagine a place with not one, not two, but 7 Earth-sized planets all orbiting a single star. It's not just science fiction, thanks to a new discovery by NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope. TRAPPIST-1, an ultra-cool dwarf star just under 40 light-years away, plays host to this incredible collection of planets. In 2016, astronomers using the TRAPPIST telescope at the La Silla Observatory in Chile first identified 3 Earth-sized planets here. The discovery warranted extensive follow-up by Spitzer, whose infrared detectors are particularly sensitive to the cool glow of this tiny star. Spitzer devoted over 21 days of nearly continuous observations to TRAPPIST-1, pausing only to send data back to Earth. It was looking for tiny dips in the star's brightness when the circling planets pass in front of the star or transit. From this extensive dataset, astronomers confirmed 2 of the 3 previously reported planets and found the third was really 3 different ones. Plus it discovered 2 more, for a total of 7. The transits tell us a lot about these planets, including their size, orbital period, distance from the star, and for some of them, their approximate mass and density. NASA's Hubble Space Telescope followed up by studying the transits to look for the chemical hydrogen gas in the exoplanet atmospheres. While its search continues, none has been found yet, adding support to the idea these are all rocky terrestrial worlds. That makes this a planetary system that is both familiar yet exotic. It is likely most, if not all, of these planets perpetually keep one face pointed toward their star, a phenomenon called tidal locking. This would create large temperature gradients across their surfaces and offer the possibility that liquid water could exist on any of them under the right conditions. Moreover, if you could stand on the surface of one of these worlds and look up at your neighboring planets in the sky, they would at times appear larger than our moon looks to us. That's because TRAPPIST-1 is only a little bigger than Jupiter, and the TRAPPIST-1 planets orbit only a little farther apart than Jupiter's moons. Interplanetary trips here would be measured in days, not months or years like in our solar system. For now, we can only speculate what these exoplanets might be like, as we still know relatively little about them. Upcoming missions like the James Webb Space Telescope will study the TRAPPIST-1 system in greater detail and uncover more clues about the atmospheres and compositions of these 7 Earth-sized worlds.
It's kind of funny, though.
I know. Everybody funny. Now you for that too.
Purple dawn theory is so vital because these planets have to get their oxygen, their atmospheres, and whatever it is they need to sustain life from this little brown dwarf star or red dwarf. It must have been very frustrating for him to paint someone a blueprint and have them still not get it. That word obstinate comes to mind. It's kind of funny, though.
I said I know. Everybody funny. Now you for that too.
I'm gonna read something to you, and you tell me if you know who wrote it. Estimates that super technological starmen with interstellar spaceships may have visited Earth some 5,000 times since life first proliferated on Earth some 500 million years ago. All right, time's up. The answer is Carl Sagan. How about that? I guess he can, engage and talk like that, but had Velikovsky ever done that when he was coming out with his book, they would have probably wanted to put him in a mental hospital. Carl Sagan kind of came around to seeing things Velikovsky's way, it looks like there at the end. There's another one. Dr. V. Ranghavan, head of Sanskrit at University of Madras. 50 years of researching this ancient works convinces me that there are living beings on other planets, and they have visited Earth as far back as 4000 BC. I would say further, much further. There is just a mass of fascinating information about flying machines, even fantastic science fiction weapons, that can be found in translations of the Vedas, Indian epics, and other ancient Sanskrit texts. Well, we've known that for a while. And this one really gets me. Dr. Robert Bloom, a mainstream paleontologist, came out with a pronouncement that probably staggered all of his colleagues, saying it was clear to him that evolution was accomplished not by natural selection or mutations, but by spiritual beings of various grades and various kinds of intelligence. Even the hardcore mainstreamers end up coming out and saying this. And here's one of the things that gets me. I don't think for a minute that Cro-Magnon went extinct. Cro-Magnon man appeared with the mysteriously improved skeletal characteristics and with a cranial capacity that is amazingly in excess by 100 cubic centimeters of that of modern man. A similarly large degree of brain expansion occurred in absolutely no other species on Earth. In all the ages of the past, not has any genus shown evidence of brain mutation of a comparable magnitude since antiquity. Why aren't the apes getting bigger brains and evolving? The rabbits. No other species. The brains of all these early humans were 10 to 15% larger than ours. Well, this even goes further. We got them as cavemen. I don't think that they were cavemen. And I know that one thing so that they could figure out the mysteries of the universe. Now, Hoagland says that you can get, when you look at the moon up close, you see a light at the edges, and that is the crystalline structures or glass structures that were built like domes. And, this is what the moon looks like just looking at it through my regular lens. It's pretty bright and can't make much out. And when I zoom in on it, you can see what he's talking about. And you see that light around the edges there. It's green, sometimes it's blue. It just depends. Now, I don't know if this is a photography effect or if it's like he says, light from the sun filtering through glass structures. Could very well be. Many times I've poo-pooed things that Hoagland has said, but more often than not, it turns out that he's not just talking out of his butt. He seems to have a grasp on this thing. I sometimes thinks that he sees a building in every rock pile, but yet, see, to us, as an untrained eye, it might look like a rock pile. I know that the man has to have a lot of experience, so I have to give him his props for that. He's really trying to make a difference and bring us what they're up to over there at NASA. And I think that's a good thing. I think that he's sincere in his work.
Line with the actual solid horizon of space above the air globe. Now pay attention to your screen at the top center. We'll see a dot of light appear and begin to move from right to left. Watch carefully. The dot will turn hard right in apparent response to a brief flash from the lower left. 3 seconds later, 2 contrails move sharply upward from the lower left. In my opinion, the NASA shuttle video you have just seen is among the most extraordinary pieces of footage in television history. A truly extraordinary leak of what has to be the world's most secret military program. This is not just wild-eyed speculation. There is a document which was uncovered in the 1980s, declassified by the Air Force from the Wright-Patterson Technical Library in Ohio, that in fact reveals in the 1950s, for approximately 10 or 20 years, this nation, all the major aerospace companies were engaged in research on electrogravitic technology. Electrogravitics is basically the control of gravity. In 1958, after a special conference arranged among all these players by the Air Force, all reference to this technology in the open literature disappeared. But underground, quietly, with secret black budgeted money, who knows what by now these people and these processes could have developed.
That's all they are. So, my problem here is if we keep explaining every human technological innovation by crashed and recovered extraterrestrial flying saucers, pretty soon we're going to have to start crashing stuff on ET's world so that they can catch back up with us. I mean, this is a philosophical, epistemological, go nowhere basis to do research. So when I look at what the Nazis are doing, particularly their more exotic stuff, what I'm looking at are the papers in unified field theory that are coming out inside of Germany with German authors, in some cases British authors, French authors, that are thinking in these terms. And then I'm also looking at engineering papers. This is very, very crucial, because you can talk theory all you want, but can you do that with 1930s technology? And there's a very important figure that I keep discussing in my books. It's a fellow by the name of Gabriel Kron, K-R-O-N, a Hungarian electrical engineering genius, all right? This guy ended up working in the United States for General Electric. You know, that should tell you something right there. But in 1935, and this just blew my mind the first time I found this out. In 1935, Gabriel Kron wrote a paper that won him the Montefiore Prize at the University of Liège in Belgium. And in the paper, what he says is we electrical engineers can explain anomalous phase creep and so on in large networked rotating electrical systems by the use of tensor calculus. Now, you know, tensor calculus is what Albert Einstein is using in general relativity. So what Kron is just telling you is we can take that whole hyperdimensional mathematical language out of the realm of theory, where it only affects things on a planetary or stellar scale, bring it right down here onto the laboratory bench, and use this to explain and therefore manipulate phenomena that we electrical engineers are encountering in our electrical systems. What he's just told you is, in a certain sense, we don't need the theory to have a unified field theory. We can use this stuff right now with current technology and with current mathematical higher dimensional analysis. That's breathtaking. And, you know, incidentally, at the moment he publishes this paper and receives this prize, unified field theory publication absolutely stops inside of Nazi Germany. There's not another word about it. And, you know, this isn't because the Nazis are afraid of Jewish physics. What it means is they've seen exactly what the implications are, and they've decided to start working on it.
Wow.
Indeed. Well, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you on down the road.